When you hold Bitcoin on your balance sheet, inflation becomes your friend.
Yes.
So I agree with you. I think that an astute observation that this type of mechanism would create more inflation and would expand the rate of credit expansion of dollars, which is inflation. But when on the asset side of your balance sheet you have an inflation protected asset like Bitcoin because of absolute digital scarcity, the inflation itself actually starts to benefit you. Now,
Yes.
let me explain this in terms of people's reserves, principal protected note Bitcoin bond. It creates a positive feedback loop for the Social Security fund, or for the insurance company, or for Tahinis, or for whoever has it on their balance sheet. Because what happens is you issue that first bond, and what it does is it creates demand for Bitcoin because a portion of the raise has to go into spot Bitcoin. So that demand on Bitcoin forces the price of Bitcoin to go up. Well, the price of Bitcoin going up actually increases the yield of the bond. And when the
Yes.
yields go up, there's more demand for the debt. So when there's more demand for the debt, you issue more debt, and then you go buy more Bitcoin, and then the price goes up again, which pushes the yields up, which creates more demand. So you get a positive flyback wheel where all of a sudden, the more money the government borrows, the faster Social Security is fixed. The more
Yes.
credit that's extended, the more profitable the insurance company becomes. The more inflation that's created, the faster Tahinis can open up a new restaurant. So it takes the fatal flaw of the fiat system and turns it into your weapon, turns it into your sword that empowers you. So as we go through this transition, I think that there's an ability to leverage that reality, and that's my pushback on that first part. But I agree with you on your first counterpoint. After we get through the transition, like after people drop dollars altogether, like when dollars see, in my study of fiat currencies, I found that even though they mathematically try to define hyperinflation as 50% per month, that's bogus. There it changes with each culture and society and economy. There's no mathematical point where you can say, this is where we transition from inflation to hyperinflation. However, across all of that time and space and across all of those economies and cultures, there's one thing in common, and that is trust. And in my opinion, what I've learned is that the only difference between inflation and hyperinflation is trust. So when we get to the point where people lose trust, then yeah, I agree with you because they're not going to want those dollars. So why borrow dollars against your Bitcoin? Because where are you going to be able to spend them? So I think that you are correct in the long term after we have mainstream adoption.
Oh yeah,
But
of course.
in the short term, as we're going through this, the worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is sell your Bitcoin. I don't think anybody should be selling their Bitcoin. I don't think anybody who's alive right now should even be selling their Bitcoin until it's known that we are at the top of the S curve of adoption. Nobody should be selling their Bitcoin because what you're doing is you're missing out on an unknown amount of purchasing power increase because you hear people's different opinion all the time. Oh, it's going to go to a million. It's going to go to 5 million. It's going to go to 10 million. It's going to go to 20 million. Yeah, but what if it goes to a billion?
Yeah.
We don't know where it's going to go because Bitcoin has no top because fiat has no bottom, right? So you don't want to try to time the market. You just want to realize that, hey, when those dollars are laying worthless in the street, then yeah, this strategy is not going to work. But until then, the strategy is going to work really well. And something else that goes along with that is, and I draw the parallel to gold, and I still think about this every night. It's like that meme where you're laying in bed next to your wife and you're turned the other way, and it's like, I wonder what he's thinking about other girls, and you're just like, huh, will borrowing against my Bitcoin really benefit me in the
Yeah.
long run?
That's
But
good.
you know, gold had this same problem, which is it needed a layer two solution in order for the monetary velocity to increase. Right? We didn't. Gold was a great store of value, and that's really what brought it to the stage because it was scarce and it was not easily replicated or found, and the circulating supply was hard to increase, so you could store value in it. Once people understood that, then they wanted to spend it everywhere. But when they wanted to spend it everywhere, what are they going to weigh it out? Are they going to chip it off? Are they going to melt it down? No, they needed an L2 solution. And that L2 solution was bank deposits and debt notes,
Yes.
right? So it's interesting to me that that worked really well. I mean, it worked so well that Nixon actually had to remove the gold standard because there was such a high demand for these debt notes, for these demand deposits, um, that they expanded at a rate that was greater than the amount of gold that they had. So the need, the demand for a technology that could allow monetary velocity to increase is something that we still don't understand to this day because Nixon didn't let it play out. He just removed it because it was a big problem. It's interesting to me that Bitcoin now faces the same problem. It's very clear that in just 15 years, which is absolutely amazing for anybody who's studied monetary history to understand how long it took to go from big freaking
Yeah.
yapstone rocks to gold, and then for gold to penetrate the market and people to have this understanding for 15 years for where we are is absolutely mind blowing that we are in the store value phase right now. But we need to get to that medium of exchange. We need to get to that point where, like you said, people aren't interested in dollars anymore. Isn't
Yeah.
it interesting that dollars are actually the most effective L2 solution right now? You see Lightning Network pretty good, Liquid pretty good. I'm a fan of the Stacks blockchain and SBTC. I think that's going to be a pretty good solution. And I think there should be multiple solutions. I'm a free market capitalist, and I think the market will use a different solution for whatever its need is. Some solutions
Of
will
course.
cater to other things better, and the free market will do what it needs to do. And there should be multiple solutions. But right now, it's clear to me that the best L2 solution for Bitcoin is actually dollars. So when Trump comes out and says, and this went over a lot of people's, I have not seen anybody else on Twitter talk about this. Trump made his announcement, and everybody said, "Oh, first of all, it was overshadowed by RFK, right? Because RFK had nothing to lose, so he can come out and say the most extreme things that we would
Hmm.
dream that Trump would say." And RFK did
Right.
a great job, and I'm really glad he's taken multiple orange pills. Um, but man, what he said really took away from what Trump said because Trump couldn't make as such radical statements because, first of all, he's a politician and he has to reach out to both sides of the aisle here. But what Trump said and what everybody focused on was that we'll have a strategic stockpile reserve, right? A strategic reserve. And that was the big announcement. But something he snuck in there that went over a lot of people's heads, and you can't blame him, is that Trump said that he would expand the dominance of the dollar through stablecoins. That is a really important concept, especially when you look
It
at
is.
Tether right now. Tether, for the longest time, people said if you don't have a fractional reserve bank, you can't make any money. Well, Tether made more money than BlackRock. So I think they're doing pretty good. And they're backed 1 to 1. Now they're not backed 1 to 1 with all cash equivalents of US Treasuries, but if you go look at their attestations, it's pretty close. So they have a fully reserved bank, so to say, and it's
I think it
profiting
was like
more than
77%
BlackRock.
or something like that. Was that what it
Yeah,
was? 77%? And then they have
yeah,
Bitcoin, they have other, I think they have other cryptocurrencies. I think they've been putting a lot into Bitcoin.
correct. And they even have some commercial paper as well. So I
Right.
definitely recommend if you hold Tether to go look at their transparency page to understand what's backing that token. But what you
Hmm.
need to understand that it is backed. And when you talk about the major banks, it's not backed. There is
Yes.
a lot of people don't know this. The reserve requirement since COVID is zero. Like they have a hard time believing that. It's legit. Go look it up on the website. It's
Yeah.
zero, and they've never changed it. So people need to understand like the bank term funding program is a perfect example that hey, banks hold reserves according to their own risk profile. They'll look at Basel banking guidelines, they'll look at different risk portfolios and strategies, but really it's up to that bank to decide how they want to back your deposits and what tools they want to use to back those deposits with. And there's been
Yeah.
somewhat of a marriage between the government and the banks because the government said, "Hey, we need yeah, we need to borrow a lot of money. And if we keep issuing treasuries, that's going to push interest rates up way too high. So
Yes.
we need to get everybody's money." And the bank said, "Well, hey, we're holding everybody's money. So why don't we let you borrow everybody's money? And then, we'll perform some custodial arbitrage here. We'll lend the money to you. That'll be the asset that backs the customer's deposit liability. And hey, we make billions for just being the middleman. This sounds like a good deal." Well, that's not how it's gonna operate and how it's gonna work. But, I said all that to say this. Trump said he's going to expand the dominance of the dollar through stable coins. I think that was the most important thing he said at Bitcoin 2024, even more
Yeah.
important than the reserve, the stockpile reserve. And the reason is because in my opinion, dollar is a currency and the dollar is actually the best L2 solution for Bitcoin right now. It allows for monetary velocity based off of Bitcoin equity when you borrow against it. So I think there's
Right.
a very interesting dynamic that's taking place right now. And the other exciting thing is, and what a time to be alive for both of us, because this is a big experiment. We have no idea what the hell is going on. People talk about trust the science. This is science. We are hypothecating and looking at the results and adjusting and building new products and bringing things to market. We are in a big monetary experiment right now and is one of the most exciting times in human history because we have a chance with engineered money to get back to a system that empowers we the people, which is the exact opposite of what fiat does. But I sleep at night. I sit there. I'm like, man, are dollars really the best L2 for Bitcoin?
Yeah. Yeah.